Okay. Is it a feasible topic? Can we do it? Is this research topic doable? Or the research topic is too ambitious, too big to do. It is, you know, uh, it's very wishful. So we need to be realistic. It has to be a feasible research topic. We should have financial resources. We should have resources for data collection, access to the data, right? Um, and so we need to evaluate whether it is feasible or not. At the same time, we need to look at the appropriateness, which means whether the topic is, is suitable for research, and it is, it is in line with the standard set by your university, right? So also, we talked about different techniques for generating research ideas that include rational thinking, searching the literature, creative thinking, scanning media, brainstorming, relevance trees, exploring the past projects, discussion, keeping an ideas notebook. If you remember, we discussed these techniques quite in detail, uh, starting from rational thinking, examining your own strengths and interests, looking at the past project titles, and we had a long discussion on these areas. I'm just going to recap uh, these areas. Similarly, creative thinking, we talked about, in order to have creative thinking, it's always helpful to have an idea notebook. And one of the easiest method to have idea notebook these days, we don't need to carry a notebook these days. Everybody has got a mobile phone. Simply use any app for noting down your ideas. For example, Google Keep. Uh, it can be very helpful, or any other notes taking app. And you need to have an ideas notebook always, because ideas come and go. So you need to preserve the idea the moment idea comes, right? Similarly, uh, we need to be exploring personal preferences using the past project, relevance trees, brainstorming. If you remember, we talked about brainstorming, relevance trees, and brainstorming, and I explained to you that the brainstorming is uh, simply, you know, pooling your ideas. Different friends or colleagues or different people who have similar interests, they sit together and they start sharing ideas. But there are some basic rules when you're conducting any brainstorming session. And one of those rules is that everybody is allowed to participate. Nobody should be criticized during a brainstorming session. And the logic I gave you that in the last lecture, uh, that if people start criticizing each other, some people would be very reluctant to share their ideas, and that would uh, simply discourage them to share ideas, and that's very much against the basic spirit of brainstorming. So try to have a brainstorming session in which all sort of suggestions are welcome. You should discourage any sort of criticism during brainstorming session. Obviously, you need to evaluate each idea, but obviously, brainstorming session is not the right time. Once you finish the brainstorming session, at later stage, you can evaluate ideas. Um, so no suggestion should be criticized or evaluated at the time of brainstorming session, uh, try to produce as wild and spontaneous ideas as possible, right? All ideas should be recorded. The meeting, your brainstorming session should either be digitally recorded through a tape recorder, or maybe an online recorder, or if it is not possible, then somebody should take note and record all ideas, right? Similarly, the last thing is that once all the ideas are pooled, then we evaluate different suggestions made by, we analyze different suggestions, right? Um, One of the very similar technique with the brainstorming session is Delphi technique, and this is where we would have slightly more detailed discussion today. Last time we covered up to brainstorming session. I gave you a recap. So Delphi technique is basically, as I said, that during a brainstorming session, we do not wish, or we should not criticize ideas. However, there must be a mechanism to evaluate ideas. Obviously, I mean, for generating ideas, any idea is a good idea. But uh, in practice, not every idea is a good idea. So you need to evaluate, and we do it using Delphi technique, which is we can also evaluate, analyze through conducting a preliminary study, continually testing out ideas, integrating ideas, refining topics by you and your organization or your supervisory team. So let's talk about the Delphi technique. A Delphi technique involves using group of people who are either involved or interested in the research idea to generate or choose a more specific research ideas. Now, what we do basically, we tell people, the first step is we give a briefing to people in a group. It's similar to brainstorming sessions. We have different people in a group who are told that this should be the research idea. This is what we are going to do, right? And then, we encourage them to have their idea about, or their, what do they think about a particular research topic, right? So at the end of the briefing, we encourage group members to seek clarification and more information if they need, right? Third step is to ask each member of the group to, including the originator of the idea, right, of the research ideas, based on the idea that has been described, right? Now, so basically what we're doing, we're telling people, this is the research purpose, you need to give your ideas, right? And then we start collecting ideas in an unedited, non-attributable form. That means all members, they should write down their ideas, they should submit ideas. But unlike the brainstorming session, in brainstorming session we take leads from each other. Somebody gives an idea, and that clicks another idea to somebody else's mind, right? While this is in the Delphi technique, basically we've got refined, because the purpose is to refine ideas. Um, we give them briefing, ask people to generate ideas or what do they think about a particular research topic, start collecting their research ideas, right? And then a second cycle of the process, step 2 to 4. I mean, the step 2 was give them again briefing, uh, collect more ideas. It is a rerun. And then after number of cycles, we reach a conclusion or consensus. So basically what we do, we ask people, look, this is our research ideas. For example, we've got 5-6 research ideas. You're going to discuss, you're going to collect, and then once you collect the ideas, we refine them. We tell them, okay, look, these 3 ideas are not possible. We're going to focus on the another, rest of the 3 ideas, discuss them again, evaluate, and then we rerun unless we reach to a final. We basically finalize our ideas, right? So that's about idea generation. Once the idea is generated, the next question is, you've got an idea, you're clear what you're going to do. Now the next question is, translate your ideas into research questions. So when you would start doing a research, any report, any research report, any thesis, any project, it has got a research question, right? And the research question is basically where you are describing what you are going to do in this research. So once, as I said, once we know what in the earlier parts we talked about attributes of good research, we have already generated our ideas. The next natural step is, once we are clear what exactly we're going to do, we need to document our research questions, right? So now the research question you generate should be the center of your whole study. I mean, it's like, this exactly is what I'm going to do, right? And so your research methodology, your research design, your research, data collection strategy, it should all revolve around your research question, right? So it's basically for example, if you want to study how many people in the younger age or in the old age or in the like middle ages, they got affected by the coronavirus, or they are mentally affected by coronavirus. So here the purpose, as you can see, I'll explain you in a minute, is basically to describe the number of people who got affected. So it's basically a descriptive research idea, right? So your research design, your the way you collect data, it would all be influenced by your research question, right? So what exactly it should look like? uh, obviously you would think, you know, I mean that seems all theoretical, but I need an example. What should it look like, right? So, for example, you're a business management student, right? And you start working for a company, and you're interested. Uh, I mean, you go on an internship, for example, right? Uh, and during your internship, your organization is having a problem of employee turnover. People come, get trained, and leave the organization. Now, here's a problem, and the organization wants you to study this, right? So, possible research question is why people leave this organization quickly, right? So, this could be a possible research question in which you are going to focus your research on a question why people are leaving, right? So, this is an example of a research question, right? Or the other examples could include why organizational strategy for attracting customers is not working. Another example could be whether this ad um, is going to have a strong impact in the minds of consumers or not, right? So these are all examples of research questions. They're given in your book section. There's a box 2.8 on page 43. You can also have a look at that, right? Now, I'll give you more example in a minute, right? But here, so the first thing is you need to see your that when you're writing a research question, whether it is consistent with the expected standards. When we say expected standards, what does that mean? I mean, you write a research question. You can write a research question. My research question is to know whether my class fellows they have enough sleep or not. That could be a research question, but does it really meet your requirement? As a business graduate, you're expected, as a business student, you're expected to link your research questions with your field of study, right? So you need to be consistent with, you need to be very, clear what standards are expected from you. Generally, in a thesis, in a graduate thesis or an undergraduate project, which some of you might be taking, undertaking in this semester and the next semester, because of the this situation, the COVID situation, where most of people cannot go for internships. So an alternative is having a research project, undergrad research project. So once you need to be very clear what is expected standard, how many variables you need to study. I mean, is it sufficient to do a research on your own habits? It may not be sufficient, though it could be an exploratory process to explore yourself. You might do it systematically, studying your own family, but it might not be consistent with the expected standards, right? So generally, for a business student, we need to we encourage students to do research on organizations or organizational issues, right? You should be able to produce clear conclusions from your research question. It is at the right level, not too difficult, not too descriptive. What does that mean when I say at the right level? It should not be too difficult. If it is, if for example, if your research question is to, I want to know whether the organizations all over the world, they are having any financial, how they are dealing with the financial crisis during COVID-19. Now, sometimes it's too big for you to study, what companies are doing all over the world, right? So it could be very difficult. It's not at the right level. It's too challenging. It is not feasible to do that study within a given period of time that is available to an undergraduate or a graduate student for a final project. So it should be at the right level. It should not be too difficult, right? Not too descriptive. As I gave you an example, simply describing how many people live around you, for example, it could be a piece of research, but it's not, or how many factories in an industrial area you've got. I mean, this could be an important piece of information, but then it's too descriptive. You're not really correlating anything. Simply you're describing how many factories are there, how many workers are working there. So it is not an ideal situation. Yeah, right? Use Goldilocks test. Goldilocks test is basically, it tells you need to test a couple of things. Number one, some of them we already discussed in the last slide. The first thing is you need to ask, when you're finalizing your research question, is my research area, is it too small or is it too big? Or is it at the right level, right? If it is too small, for example, I want to study, as I said, for example, you can say, I want to see the behavior. For example, like you have a cafe at the university, right? And you would say that the relationship between job satisfaction and let's say employee salaries at ComSat's cafeteria. So maybe it's too small study. You do not have a sufficient number of participants, right? So it's not. And similarly, trying to study all possible restaurants in Pakistan or Lahore, it's too big, right? So it has to be just the right level, right? The reason is too big needs significant amount of funding, right? And you do not have funds available. Even very large studies, to got sufficient funding available, they still have to be realistic, because no matter how much funding you got, you cannot cover the whole population in some cases, right? It should, if it is too small, then it is likely to be insufficient substance. It would not give you any meaningful result, right? Too hot, maybe because of sensitivities that may be aroused as a result of doing the research. This may be because of timing of the research. For example, we're doing a research. I mean, obviously, anything we do these days related with the coronavirus is a hot thing, but it's, I mean, in some areas it is really worth studying because a large number of lives are being affected. In some cases, uh, simply studying this, you know, uh, a long-term phenomena during or anything that is more permanent in nature uh, during COVID-19 may sometimes be too hot and may not stay relevant after 1 or 2 years, right? So it has to be just at just right level. It is just right for investigation at the time by the researcher in this setting, right? So Goldilocks test is basically testing, trying to have us another look at your project. Is it too narrow? Is it too big? Or is it the right level? Now, the interesting part is um, everybody has got some research ideas. So here I'm going to share a few examples with you, right? Uh, so that you know how we're going to turn ideas into research projects, how we're going to convert research ideas into meaningful research questions. Here's an example. You have an interest in advertising and share prices. Advertising and share prices. Now, if you look at this one, this part, advertising and share price, basically what how does running a TV ad campaign is going to boost the image of the company, that is also going to affect its share prices, right? So what you are going to do is you basically are trying to link the TV advertisement of the product with the share prices, right? So in this research idea, basically we've got two important variables. One is advertising, right? The other is the share prices of the company. And what we're going to do, the main research question is going to evaluate or going to study how does running a TV campaign designed to boost the image of a company affects its share prices. Similarly, there's another example, job recruitment via internet. So you have an interest in an idea that about job recruitment via internet. So that is how you are going to translate this idea into a research question. How effective is recruiting for new staff via internet in comparison with the traditional method? So it's a comparative study where you are going to study your like internet recruiting with the traditional methods of recruiting. Remember, students come and they tell their supervisors, I want to do research. And when the supervisors ask, what sort of research you are going to do? I want to study business. I mean, that's very vague. You need to have a specific research idea. You need to have a specific domain. Obviously, at the start of research, I mean, this is quite understandable. At the start of research, you are sometimes not very clear what exactly you are going to do, but you need to have an idea about the broader domain. For example, you are going to study behavior, human behavior, in the organization, or you want to study recruitment in the organization, or you want to study, the selection process in the organization. So once you know the broad area, research area, then gradually you can be more specific what exactly you're going to study, and you can translate the research idea into a research question, right? So as I said, always start with a general focus question. Discuss the idea with your tutor. I'm going to explain it a bit more in a minute. When we say start with a general focus question, many students, they are trapped in a situation where they find it very hard to choose a research idea. When students often come and they ask, I cannot comprehend the area I'm going to research, and the reason is they are either just thinking in a very vague term, or from the very first step they would determine their variables. They would like fix their variables. What you should do, for example, one of the problem is, like I give you some example. One of the student came to me and he told me that he's chosen 5 variables. One is the independent variable, one is the moderator, there are 2 mediators, one dependent variable, and the whole model, without doing any proper literature search. So what he did was, he had an idea that I want to study one variable and its relationship with other, put couple of mediators and a moderator, right? And then finalize research question based on that. That is not a good approach. You should always start with a general focus question. General area, general field of study. For example, if you have an interest in the marketing, for example, you can, within this domain, you can start working on advertisement, effect of advertisement on consumers, or effect of advertisement on children product. Now this is a broader area that would give you basic idea about your research topic. And what you would do in the next step, you would start searching the literature, you would start analyzing how many different types of studies have already been undertaken in this domain, what are the different variables other people have already studied, and that would help you to refine your research question in a more precise way. So I would not recommend a pre-decided 4, 5, 6 variables, and you would simply start working without having any proper literature search, right? Always discuss your ideas with your tutor, which is always helpful. Once your research question is written down, the next step is you need to operationalize, turn the broader research question into research objectives, right? Now, what is the difference between a research question and the research objectives? So a research question, as you've already seen, I gave you an example. For example, the media campaign or a graduate recruitment via internet, and we discussed we can make a research question. The research question would be like, to what extent and to what type of context in the internet recruitment and selection of graduates is effective and why. Another could be, descriptive study, which is comparing internet recruitment with the traditional methods. Or a research question, once the research question is formulated, the next step is we need to turn it into objectives. That means we need to know exactly what we are going to study. What are the different variables involved, right? What are the different relationships we are going to study, right? So some of the examples of research objectives could be, for example, when we say the research question is to understand or to explore in which situation and to what extent is internet-based recruitment and selection of graduates effective and why, right? So this is the research question. So what we are doing, in which situation and to what extent internet-based recruitment and selection is effective. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to see different situations. So we might have, in the research objectives, we're going to have 2 situations or 3 situations. We're going to see the impact of online recruitment at the, for example, entry-level managers and for the senior managers. So there are different situations involved. Here we are operationalizing situation. When we say situation, it could be the level of recruitment. It could be the type of organization in which online recruitment is more suitable, right? It could be a particular type of job. So what we do, we're basically operationalizing in forms of objective. Similarly, we can have objective number 2, which is consistent with the overall research question. Question was of online recruiting. So we can have another objective, which is the second objective of the research could be to evaluate the effectiveness of recruitment in terms of cost, for example. So, the cost effectiveness, the procedure effectiveness, and the accuracy of entry tests or recruitment tests, right? So different, you can see in the research question, we had a general idea where we were going to study the effectiveness of the online recruiting. Here we are, we're more focused what exactly effectiveness means. Is it the cost effectiveness? Is it the effectiveness of the procedure? Is it the effectiveness in terms of whether we are hiring the right candidate or not, right? So that is how you can turn a research question into different objectives, right? Okay, if you want more details on this, in your book, you've got section a box 2.9, which is writing a set of research objective. There's a very nice example given here, right? How to turn the research question, how to turn the research question into research objectives. So I would suggest reading, read these, this box 2.9, which is on page number 46, right? And that would give you, a clearer picture, right? So once you've generated already ideas through the idea generating processes, you've refined your idea. Now you know which domain you're going to do research. You develop a research question, right? You start with a broader domain, and then for example, I already gave you example. Always start with a broader domain. Within a broad domain, try to find out a specific field and then specific variable. Never start with a specific variable and then try to expand it to the other to a larger population, right? Sorry, not the larger population, the larger domain of study, right? So start with a broader topic and bring it down to the narrow one. Now, the next thing is that we are going to have so include, if you look at this, it includes SMART personal objectives, turning ideas into research projects, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You've already gone through these in a number of courses. So what you do now, find an article, any 10 articles, read the title. The first step is you need to start working on the titles and the abstract, and try to identify whether the title matches with the research described in the abstract, what idea you get about research question and the research objectives. Can you relate any of these titles to your research you want to conduct, and what are the trendy topics in your area? So we will have a discussion on this. I'll explain you in a minute how you are going to do it, right? Then in the next lecture, we are going to talk about theories and developing a research proposal, right? So for this one, I'll stop here. I'll stop the lecture here, and we'll have a discussion on how you're going to explore an idea, on how you're going to develop an idea, how you're going to develop a research question, how you're going to scan the media, right? Different articles, different media to formulate a research question, right? So we will stop the recording here, and we're going to have discussion on this, right? So if you have any questions, You can also ask questions in this time, right? So okay, so